What makes something scary? It's subjective, but there are attributes that can determine if a horror game sticks with you. Security Breach, unfortunately, is not that game, but I think it has potential to be that game. The main critique I see of Security Breach is that it's not scary. For most of the game, the atmosphere is well lit, and the animatronic designs are aesthetically appealing until the very end, along with them also having character and being shown some sort of sympathy in the story. A lot of the main fix I've seen is to just turn the lights off and make the animatronic mindless monsters like before. However, I think they should go farther in with the bright color and colorful location and characters, which would actually in turn help the horror elements of the series. We can't lie to ourselves. FNAF is a series now aimed at a younger audience. I'd say around middle school to early college. One thing I will say though is that this can be a good thing if done well. Look at Coraline for an example of how you can make effective horror and still aim it at kids. That being said, the main worry of FNAF now is that because of the strange line change to include the mention of blood, and the location of animatronics being eye-catching, that this means FNAF has gone from a kiddie game that gets not too scary as to not scare little Tommy. But have you played Security Breach? Now don't get me wrong, in the series it is one of the least scary, but there are moments when it can actually be genuinely creepy and has a great horror atmosphere. It's just a very few moments that make it an issue. It's not scary because they try to lighten the game's horror elements for kids, it's just not scary because of how they time the horror elements and the lack of them. Horror being for adults or kids does not determine whether or not it's scary. I have seen adult horror that has blood and gore that's pretty childish to me, and I've seen kid horror that actually gets to me. And this gets us to atmosphere. So an atmosphere in a game is how the world should feel to a player at any given moment. Whether it's whimsy, fear, happiness, excitement, whatever. A good atmosphere isn't what looks good, it's what probably conveys the feeling it's trying to have the player feel. Now horror, like any other atmosphere, has a unique weakness. You can get used to it. This is why revisiting a horror classic isn't as impactful at the first time you see it, or how the first time you go through a haunted maze you're scared, but maybe after a few times you're joking around and having a blast. I mean, skeletons used to be considered peak scariness when you're a toddler, but now that you've seen them many times, it doesn't even faze you. Most horror games fix this problem by adding in new areas and monsters to hunt the player. If your game has a single location and all enemies are introduced relatively at the start, how do you make it so the player isn't used to it all so quickly? A great way to keep the horror scary is actually by giving the player a proper break from the horror. This is personally why I think FNAF Pizza Race Simulator, Dreaming Mary, and Omori are effective horror games. They have these truly calming and delightful gameplays that can make the horror elements of the game stick out more. Playing the simulator mode and having fun with that dread knowing that once you run out of currency, you must continue on. Dreaming Mary never outright shows the horror, in fact, you need to find it. But the small instances of things being off that still makes the player feel uncomfortable, despite the world being soft and pastel. That feeling of dread, the knowledge that everything nice must come to an end, knowing that in order to process, you must face the horrors, not even knowing if you'll ever go back to safety. Omori amplifies this by adding unpredictability to the mix. Before I continue, do know that there will be major spoilers for Omori and major spoilers for Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach. If you haven't played these games or you're interested, please do so, then come back to the video. A safe space in horror game is effective when it's no longer certain just how safe it is. For most of Omori, the dream world is just sunshine, very silly, and the story is lighthearted. The times that things do go wrong, it's shown as separate from the world. The player is led to believe that as long as Omori is not alone, there will be a fun little adventure. This is why the whale level is concerning. It doesn't switch to a horror section when things go wrong. Everything is going wrong in that world now. The boss isn't turning an electric horror, but it is still concerning to fight it. Things are becoming a threat to you, even in this place that should be safe. Same goes to the electric monsters your party can fight. They don't belong in the world, but they exist in it anyways. There's also the fact that not every Omori being alone section leads to horror. Some just show key elements of what happened to a sister, others are ethereal in nature but aren't threatening, and others appear to be leading to horror, but wind up being nothing. There's just that uneasy feeling to make players always on guard, even if nothing is wrong, and during a blind playthrough, it's impossible to tell what events will lead to horror elements and what events will just continue the story. Security Breach could have used the aesthetics, animatronics, and location to its full advantage. And what I mean is, Make all the animatronics your ally, except for Moon. Make it so they're generally friendly and just want to help / keep Gregory occupied until the doors open or they can find another exit for him. While searching for a way out, Gregory could take a break and play games, interact with the animatronics, and overall just enjoy minigames. Maybe Freddy encourages him to do that so the kid isn't stressing the whole night. During this time, you'd learn more about the animatronics, why Gregory came here in the first place, along with the history of the Pizzaplex, including rumors of an old location. During random times, the lights go off, leaving Gregory forced to solve whatever challenge and puzzles during that period. During these times, the animatronics will be on the attack. Story beats for this would be learning about the Glitch App virus and how it's affecting the Pizzaplex, who Vanny is, and maybe even clues on how to save her. Even Vanessa could join in as an ally later on, with an emphasis on making the player think she is of course going to be Vanny. So the player is led to believe that any missions, puzzles, fetch quests they do to escape the Pizzaplex would be split into two categories. Lights on, animatronics are safe, and maybe just Vanny's after you, or lights off, animatronics are dangerous, but maybe Vanessa is there to help. During the final act, the animatronics will attack even if the lights are on, but they'd also be safe when lights are off too. Now since starting what time is fully safe for Gregory, the entity manipulating the animatronics might even be smart and pretend to be safe later on. We will never get what FNAF used to be. But really, I think this is a good thing. I actually like that the games are trying new things, and while it may have some fumbles, I would rather have a game maybe not feel like FNAF, but be amazing at what it does itself. Well anyways, subscribe and thank you so much for watching the video to the very end.